All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the KMM community meeting. Today is Wednesday, August the 9th of 2023. And I think we have a somewhat reduced audience today, but not much to discuss, really. We have a pretty light agenda for today. I would start with probably, I don't know if I should call them announcements, but news since the last meeting. I think the work for V2 is ongoing, and I think it's going well. Yeah, obviously you cannot see that because I can only share one tab. So I'll try to change that. Here we go. This should be fine. So this is we're looking now. Maybe I can make that a little smaller so we can have all 4 columns. So you can see that we have actually made good progress on the issues for V2. I believe we have the worker application or an initial version of the worker application already implemented and merged. We are also working on the various reconcilers that we want for V2. Yeah, I think I explained, all of that in the design document already. And so I think we're well on track. Today's really the end of the first sprint. If I can, yeah, I'm not. As you can see, I'm not really proficient. Yeah, I'm not really proficient with this tool, but anyway, we are really at the end of the first sprint, and I think we've done a pretty good job so far. So looking good for V2, and we've targeted the early September for feature complete for V2. So I think we're well on track for that. Okay, going back to the agenda here. Try and make this a little bigger. Okay, as some of you might be aware, Go 1.21 was released yesterday, and already today we actually received yeah, I cannot open that either. That's really convenient. But we've received a depend.about update pull request on GitHub to switch to Go 1.21. So as of today, all future builds of KMM will actually be built with the Go 1.21 compiler, which brings, I think, performance improvements in the order of something like between 2 and 4%, which is pretty awesome. Finally, I think we've been discussing in the past couple of meetings. I think we've been discussing dependencies on Intri. Hersh, I'm looking at you here. I think you've created yourself an issue in your project about that. And so I'm finally working on a Docker file that reproduces or that exhibits how we would address that problem with symbolic links. And I'm hoping that I can contribute that to the docs soon. That's it really for the announcements. Not like I said, we are really focusing on V2 work now, so not much to say here. Anything on those topics? Any question or remark? If not, I think that there's really only one item on the agenda that we wanted to discuss. Evgeny, I think that's the only real thing that we wanted to add is the behavior for builds and signing jobs. So right now, what we do is that we run those build and signing pods only once, and if they fail, we actually notify the user in the log file of KMM. Letting them know that something was wrong with the build and that it failed, and it's up to the user to actually delete that pod and start again the whole process. So we were thinking that in some cases you might have a transient error on the network side or something like that would prevent your build from succeeding. Yet you do not want to change anything with the Docker file, or you may not want to have to delete the job yourself. So we were thinking about changing the restart policy for the default, which is that I think the build is going to restart up to 7 times with an exponential backoff. And we were considering, doing that instead. So any feedback about that? from anyone? Harsh, does it mean that you actually want to restart the builds?
I'm neutral to it.
All right, all right. I think I think we could still monitor failures and still keep retrying for at least for this initial backoff. Yevgeny, what do you think about that?
I'm forward, but the questions that we wanted to discuss with the community is whether we need to log the failures in between the retries, or if customers are just interested in the final result.
Yeah, that's right. So we were considering, so if we introduce this exponential backoff, which is the default for Kubernetes pods, really, then the build will try up to 7 times, and we might have to wait, I think, on the last step of the backoff, maybe 6 minutes. So in total, if we do not babysit, or if we do not watch the build and the restart count, then we might be waiting for a long time before we notify the user that the build failed. So the question is, do we want to wait for that long time, which can be many minutes, even maybe 1 hour, depending on the build time? Or do we want to watch those builds and notify users as soon as we fail for the first time? I personally don't think it hurts to, logging, saying, okay, so we noticed that the build failed, but it's going to retry anyway.
And each subsequent build will be a separate pod, right? So it will retain and preserve the previous logs.
Not really. So it would be the same pod restarting.
But you will get the pod and the logs from the final failure, if
Yes.
it is consistent.
I see. I think the only use case for this, I've observed it very few times, is, if it's not able to pull the DTK image or something like that due to network, as you mentioned.
Right. And that would be transient, wouldn't it?
Right.
So in that case, restarting would be beneficial.
Correct.
I think, Evgeny, what downside do you see as logging the error?
I think that it's simply unnecessary, because the customer won't be, checking the status of the builds every second. I'm thinking he will run the build, and then sometimes, let's say 15 minutes afterwards, he will want to check what's going on, and by that time we will have the final result of the final pod failure, and then he will be able to do whatever is needed. Either delete the pod, change the configuration file, and restart again, whatever is needed.
But we still, okay.
What I'm saying is the customer is interested in the final error, not in the multiple errors that we will get in between, right? It will probably be always the same error. I mean, maybe something with the networking, most probably. So
but if we log that error as soon as the first failure happens, then I think the behavior is exactly as it is today, isn't it?
I'm not saying that we cannot log. Yes, we can do everything we want. The question is, do we need to? I mean, do we need to check? Because it does mean that we need to check to do an additional work on our code, right? We're not just checking the final status of the pod, because the final status of the pod will be available only after all the retries. We will need to check the restart counter and maybe somehow get the log. I'm not even sure if we will be able to get the log at exact time that we need to, right?
I don't think we would. I wouldn't get the logs.
So how would you know what is the issue?
Then it's up to the user to look in the pod logs. We may log the pod name, and put that in the error message and say, okay, if you want to diagnose, go look for those logs of that pod. But otherwise, I would just say that this build failed and will be restarted.
Yeah, that's great. I see, but right now, unless people here say something different, I'm not sure if it is like of any value to anybody. Either the error will be corrected in the consequent restarts and retries, or it will be the same error in the end of the retries, at the end of the 7th run, and we can just log that the pod failed, and the customer can go inside and look what's going on there and see what needs to be fixed.
I personally, I don't see any downside in logging each time there is a failure. I don't see what we lose by that. If customers want to monitor that in the KMM logs, they can. If they don't want, they don't have to,
Yeah, but all you can do is just say, okay, there is a failure. You don't know what is the failure.
No, you don't. But at least you know it, We can wait until we have a bigger consensus on this. I don't think we're in a rush.
Yeah, it will probably wait for to do the one, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. I think that makes sense. Good. Thank you for your feedback. And then that's really all I had for the agenda on today. So yeah, I guess that's it. Do we have any other miscellaneous topic or remark or question? If not, then I guess that we can close a bit early today, if that's fine with everybody. All right, let's close then. Thank you all for joining, and we will meet again 2 weeks from now. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks.